Welcome to the Poetry Pecast. For the second time this month, it's a reading. And here's a fun fact for you. It's also the second podcast this month that's taken a little bit of inspiration from oysters. Now, if you're wondering what the first one was, I'm shocked. Shocked, I tell you, that you don't already know. You'll need to pop back a week and listen to the beautiful poetry that Alison Turner shared with us. And by the way, while we're talking about that episode, have you shared your favourite children's books with me? I'm getting together a list for all new parents and new grandparents like myself. You'll find a link in the show notes. But it won't work unless you take part. Go on, send me an email. Let me know. What are your favourites? You know you want to. Anyway, this week we're joined by a Scottish poet, Claire Thom, who lives in one of my favourite parts of the world, Andalusia in Spain. Yes, once again, a poetry and a travel show. And as I listen to the rain pounding on the windows in my studio, I have to say, I really wish I was in Andalusia. Claire Thom, in case you didn't already know, is the founder of Wee Sparrow Press. There is a link in the show notes, obviously. And while you'll hear a little bit about Wee Sparrow today, Claire has come to enchant us with her poetry, her own poetry, from her beautiful book, Wildflowers in Oyster Stone. You might also be interested to hear two editors talking about the craft of haiku. Maybe you'll have questions for us. Before we head off to Spain, just a gentle reminder, if you're on the Poetry Pea mailing list, or even if you're not, get on it, you go and sign up at the website, you'll be kept up to date with the progress of the Poetry Pea anthology, which is quite the little gem. You won't want to miss it. And obviously, if you want an invitation to submit next year, you'll have to be on the mailing list. Right then, let's head to Spain and indulge ourselves with a wee bit of poetry. Haiku and haibun in this instance, with the lovely Claire Thom. You can listen on your podcast app. You can watch on YouTube, whichever you prefer. And wherever you're listening or watching, do leave us a bit of a review. That would be very kind. And tell your friends about us. Right, let's go. Today we're here with Claire Thom, visiting us all the way from Cadiz in southern Spain. Claire, welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Patricia. I want to say, first of all, thank you for having me on your podcast, which I'm a big fan of. And I have to say, over the years of my learning about and developing haiku writing, your platform is my go-to. I've learned so much. So I'm delighted to be here. And thank you as well, because you read the manuscript of my book before it went off out into the world, and I'm so grateful for your kind words of praise. That meant it really meant a lot. I sort of, when you have a manuscript and you put it out and you think, is anyone going to like this? Is what I've written, is it only me who likes it? You don't know, do you? You spend so much time with poems that you sort of can't see them in the end. So to have other people go, actually, this is good, was really, really lovely. Well, I'm the founder and editor-in-chief of the Wee Sparrow Poetry Press. I'm also co-host and producer of the Wee Sparrow Poetry podcast. The press, I think there's about 18 of us now on the team. We're international. Our main focus is making themed anthologies with all proceeds going to charity. Our fifth anthology is nearly ready to be published. And that's very exciting. It's a lot of work. There's a lot of work goes on behind the scenes, but when it gets to the point where the book is ready, I sent the proofs to my editors this week, and to have that physical book is quite a moment, because it is a lot of work. And we do all sorts. We run ekphrastic challenges. We have published 3 digital zines, which are free and available online. We have the monthly Haiku Nook, which my editor Mark Brimble runs, and that's an absolute joy. So submission window is from the 1st till the 15th of every month. And then Mark selects a haiku of the month, and then we choose 5 others, which we put up on the website. So we're asking poets to write about the month, wherever they are in the world, which is interesting because being an international press, we get obviously people writing for, the season where they are. And it's quite interesting to see the response from different countries. So that's great fun. So yeah, that's what we do. I mean, I have to say the press, we started in 2022. I can't believe how much we've done in these few years, but it's a joy. It's an absolute joy.
And you mentioned, as we were talking beforehand, you mentioned you also run workshops. I mean, you've done one recently.
Yes, yes. We had Ilyana Stoyanova from the British Haiku Society offer a free workshop online, which was great. So that was about haiku writing. We're going to be offering another one at the end of this month on ekphrastic poetry, which will be in collaboration with the Ekphrastic Review. It's free, it's online. We have a Substack newsletter, which can be found through our website, and everything is there. The
Okay.
newsletter is free, so subscribing is free. We never ask poets to pay any money. And basically, you get straight to your email what we're doing, what's happening. And we try and make things as accessible and as easy as possible for people to join. And the haiku workshop we also recorded and then shared later, which was great because again, being international, it's very difficult to find times that, everyone. So it's nice to have these things in an archive that people can then access after the date.
Absolutely. I can identify with that totally. Thank you. Thank you for that. Now, Claire is here to read from her own book, not the anthology,
That's right.
and it's called Wildflowers in Oyster Stone. And it was how did you put it? My English has deserted me for the moment. It's in aid of the Bird Conservancy of the Rockies. And I wondered, because you're based in Europe, and people can hear from your voice that you're Scottish, although that's not where you live. Why did you go for the Bird Conservancy of the Rockies as your charitable organisation this time?
Okay, so my collection, Wildflowers in Oyster Stone, which I've been working on, I think, for about the past 3 years. I had the
Wow.
manuscript, it sort of sat in a drawer. And then I connected with editor David Martin, who's the editor of Middle Creek Publishing, through social media. I think I posted a haiku. He said, "Oh, I really like that. I enjoyed." He said, "I like to see haiku that written in that style." He himself has published his own collection, and we sort of connected that way. And then I thought, oh, hang on, he's an editor of a press. Oh, this is interesting. I've got this manuscript. So I just said, like, are you accepting submissions? He said, sure, send it over. I can't guarantee anything, but I'll have a look. So I did, and within a couple of weeks, he said, yes, I think we can publish it. Luckily, I mean, my manuscript was basically ready. So the skills that I've acquired through the press, I basically had a ready to go book.
Mhm.
I'd done
Yeah.
most. He helped. Ilyana Stoyanova had helped, with some of the ordering of the poems.
Yeah.
So David he did the cover design for me, and then kind of tidied up slightly the manuscript, but it was pretty much good to go. So we got it out quite quickly. And in the publishing agreement, so he's in the US, I'm in Spain. It's very complicated
Mm.
sending books between countries. In fact, currently you can't send books to the United States because they're considered merchandise. So they're actually, because of the tariffs, they're not even allowed
Yes.
in. You can only send letters. So anyway,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah, it's a
Hmm.
nightmare. So anyway, we agreed. I said, look, at the press, we donate to charity. It's something that is close to my heart. I think it's important. Is that something we can do? Basically, so he handles the royalties that come in, and written into my publishing agreement is that he will then donate what would be my royalties to the Bird Conservancy of the Rockies, which is in Colorado, where he's based with his
Ah,
press.
okay. So the connection was with the location of the press.
Yeah.
But you've done things. I mean, obviously you're called Wee Sparrow Press, so that's sort of obvious that you might go for birds. But you have supported other bird charities in the past,
Yeah,
haven't you?
yeah. So in through the press, as well as the anthologies, we have a series of notebooks.
Hmm.
And on the front cover, we've got artwork by my dad, Colin, who's a retired architect, Scottish artist. He's our sort of resident artist. He does all
Hmm.
the illustrations, the artwork at the Wee Sparrow. And he did a series of watercolors, which are on the front covers. So the proceeds from the notebooks go to the Andalusia Bird Society, of which I'm a member here. And they do a similar organization. It's conservation. They're also working with sort of local government on, various different nature projects. And in fact, with the Bird Conservancy of the Rockies, a lot of their funding has recently been cut due to the current administration, which I think is happening to a lot of NGOs. Basically, the funding they were getting before is just gone. So they're
Yeah.
even more reliant on volunteers and donations.
Oh,
Yeah.
there you go. Thank
Yeah.
you for that explanation. We will come on to the postal issue a little bit later,
Mm,
but let's continue with the book for the time being.
okay.
One thing I should mention that is missing from the book uh, are your father's little drawings, which are often in the anthologies, aren't they?
Yeah, I did consider adding illustrations, but then I thought because we at the press we published a haiku anthology. I think Catherine was a guest on your
She
podcast.
was
We
indeed.
published
Mhm.
a gorgeous collection on the theme of home. We donated to a charity which supports the homeless in the
That's
UK.
right.
And in that we did combine, we added my dad's illustrations. For this collection, I thought about it, but I also thought that what I was trying to do with my writing was capture a scene or a
Hmm.
moment. And I thought I can add the illustrations, but then do I need to?
No,
I kind of was, I wanted the words to sit alone and for the reader to just read them and then go, yeah, I can see it,
yeah.
you know?
I think
Like,
that was a good
I made that
decision.
decision, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I love your father's work. Don't get me wrong, but that explanation makes total sense. Absolutely. So, Claire, for the literal amongst us, what is Oyster Stone?
Okay, so Oyster Stone, it's very particular to Cadiz. So Cadiz is a small city in Andalusia in the
Mm,
south of Spain. It's on the west coast. I mean, it's more sort of North Africa really than Europe sometimes, in terms of climate, flora
yeah,
and fauna. And I live in the capital city of Cadiz, very small city. I'm lucky to live by the beach. And so Oyster Stone is a particular stone used here for building. It's a combination, it's sedimentary rock formed by remnants of seashells and rocks eroded by seawater. And particularly in the old town of Cadiz, you can see it in the buildings. And if you go really up close, you can see full shells within the brickwork. And I think it's used mostly because of the humid climate. It's very porous.
yeah,
So obviously a lot of old buildings have, damp problems, but it's sort of breathable brick that can be used in building. And it's so particular to here.
yeah. I mean, I've been there. It is a, I would recommend, well, definitely would recommend a visit. Has it got, is that the city now, Claire, with the camera? Is it the camera obscura?
Yes, yeah.
That's, that is just brilliant.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely brilliant.
Yes, it's up in one of the towers. And
Mm,
Cadiz actually has many old towers because I mean, as a port city,
yeah,
obviously, at one time it was a very, very important port in Spain. And so these were the lookout points,
yeah,
over the sea and over the city.
yeah. I mean, it's also got that very old port, fortress on the
Yep,
on the walls, which
that's right.
is very interesting to go and have a look around. So
Yeah.
yeah, wonderful city. Um, Back to the book. Where does the title come from? I think I've got an idea, but tell me, where does it come from?
Okay, so when I first had well, I found I was writing predominantly haiku, but there are haibun and tanka, and uh, but it was mostly haiku, and I found that I was writing them about life here in the province of Cadiz. So the
Hmm.
province itself, long, long stretches of beach, but also when you go inland, it's very rural. There's these beautiful white villages, stretches of countryside. It's quite an agricultural province, and I love that contrast because I think a lot of people think of Spain traditionally as a tourist resort. You go to the beach, it's sunny, that's it. Which, I mean, Spain, it's a massive country and very different, different parts of the country. And so I wanted to combine because I think in the collection there's a combination of poetry written, inspired by the countryside and rural life, and then also by coastal life. So Oyster Stone, I think, suggests Cadiz itself, and then obviously the beach. Flowers takes us up into that countryside. And rather than just flowers, I thought wildflowers because that's adding to that idea of, these kind of stretches of untouched land. And it's wonderful. I mean, not in the summer because it's incredibly
No.
hot, but now in autumn and winter, quite often at the weekend, we'll go off walking. Or go for a weekend away in one of the villages, and you can kind of get the fireplace lit up, and that very lovely kind of cozy village life where actually you still find people sort of leaving front doors open, and walking around, which you see it less and less, but you still do see it, which I find quite comforting.
Yeah. Um, I was over there in the spring this year. I think it was the first time I'd been in the spring, and the wildflowers were just amazing. Again,
Yeah,
well, no, I was near the beach, so it was quite nice. But the further you get into the sort of the rural landscape, just lovely, which you don't
mhm,
necessarily see once the heat, because
yeah,
Andalusia is very, very hot. Um, Come the summer, come late spring, summer, you don't really see that. It becomes, well, less attractive, shall we say, in terms
yeah,
of landscape. But the wildflowers were absolutely wonderful this year, I
yeah.
have to say. Um, I wondered actually if it came from the title itself came from one of the poems, and
So yeah, I
yeah,
mean, yes, it did actually. I'll read that haiku.
okay, please.
Deep cracks in old oyster stone, wildflowers. Deep cracks in old oyster stone, wildflowers. And that, I mean, that was the scene. I mean, the poems in the book are scenes or moments captured, perhaps snapshots and then scribbles and then later developed. But I'm always fascinated by the way that flowers can grow out of cracks in buildings. I love that. When you get this old, I mean, that was a genuine scene. And I just thought, how amazing that nature, the strength and resilience, to just a little seed and think, well, I'll just grow here.
I know it's the thing that again I spend a lot of time in the mountains and down in the Berner Oberland there in the valley I go to most there are these absolutely humongous rocks that were sheared off in the glacial period and they've just sort of dumped themselves in the valley on the valley floor and sometimes out of these massive rocks you'll see a tree growing and you think how on God's earth did you
Yeah,
manage, did that seed manage to take and to grow? It's just amazing.
yeah.
So yeah, I love the vision, that vision of yours on that. And Claire, the jury's out on titles. I've spoken to other authors on the podcast, and Sean O'Connor comes to mind when we were talking about haibun titles, and he said, "Don't fret over them. You know,
Mm.
it's not the end of the world if they're not mega fantastic." But where are you? What do you think?
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? Because I think sometimes, from my own experience of writing my own poetry, sometimes a title will just pop into my head and the poem will develop from that. Or
Mm,
there'll be a poem and then I will just sit for ages going, what am I going to call this? I'm quite a fan in my own poetry, actually. I think of using the first line as the title, getting the reader straight in. I mean, maybe it's a bit of a cop out, but I think I certainly deliberated about the title of this book. It was untitled, or it had various titles for
mhm.
quite a while. Going back to Mark, my editor,
Yeah.
who I really appreciate because he's very, very honest. And I did have one title, and I was telling him, I'm putting this collection down. I told him, and he just said, "That's terrible." Do you know what it was? It was Surf and Turf. And he said, "It sounds like a
Oh,
restaurant from the 80s." I said, "Mark, it's awful." He said, "But I said, it's all I've come up with." He said, "You need to think about that."
yeah.
He just said, "I see what you're saying, but no."
But no, no. And he was, thank goodness for
Yes,
Mark because
yeah.
yes,
No, I was sort of, what I was trying to say is this is what I want. It's sea and it's countryside, but I
yeah,
can't. And then I think when I looked through ordering the poems and I saw that, I thought, yes, and I took it from that poem. And when you do land on a title, you have an aha moment where you go, okay, that's it.
Hmm.
That's what I was looking for. That says what I want to say.
No. I'm so pleased for you. I think I need a mark in my life. I'm I'm really rubbish at titles. Um, and when you did come upon it, when it's hit you, you felt that it said that it gave the surf and turf, the countryside, and the beach feel
Mhm.
to it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, I think, particularly if we go back to the Oyster Stone, I think
Hmm.
I love the way that it sounds. I sent my book to be reviewed recently, and someone said, Oyster Stone, gosh, you don't see a lot of Oyster Stone. I thought, you really don't. And she said, how wonderful to find it. I thought, well, because I thought as well, if I'm kind of talking about where I live, and that is something
Mm,
so particular to here. I thought, how can it not be in the title? It instantly locates the poems.
it does. You're quite right. So Claire, that's really enough from me. I want to hear your book, as does everybody else, I think. But before we go to your book, I just want to read something that Robert Kingston, who is one of my own haiku mentors, said in his review. And he said, Claire's collection includes wonderful images throughout, interlacing three forms of poetry: haiku, tanka, and haibun. Cadiz sounds like a wonderful city, nestled amongst beautiful scenery. I hope to visit one day and to sample some of these scenes captured in Claire's book. And I'd say to Rob, I think I've already said, it's a wonderful place. Cadiz is a much undervalued city, I think, in terms of tourism, which is sort of nice. You're not overwhelmed by tourists, and it's a beautiful little city and very easy to walk around. So, Rob, get your skates on, head off. Claire, would you read some pieces to us, please? Beginning, I believe, with a haibun.
Okay. This one's called Mount of Tariq. We queue politely in the car for the best part of an hour, finally arriving at the border crossing. Winding down the window, I smile at the police officer who pauses before choosing a language. Hello, passports, please. I reply in my best Andalusian. Buenos días, aquí tiene. I launch forth explaining that although I'm British, I live in Cadiz and hand him my residence card, reminding him that my post-Brexit passport does not require a stamp. He smiles. Why did the UK vote for this? Why indeed, comes my mother's irritated voice from the back seat. He stamps my parents' passports, winks and hands me back our documents. Que pasen buen día en Gibraltar. We head to the centre and park in a multi-storey by the high street. We suddenly feel like we've been transported back in time to the set of a soap opera in the 90s. A Bobby on the Beat and red telephone box complete the scene, as do overpriced bad coffees and buns in one of the cafes. Locals chat in a peculiar mix of lyrical Southern Spanish and estuary English. After popping into Marks and Spencer, we go back to the car and set off to explore. Narrow roads wind up, and a stunning view across to the Atlas Mountains is revealed. We sit for a while in the warm sunshine. Sharing sandwiches on the rock, Barbary apes. Levant wind, rattling shutters and moods. Levant wind, rattling shutters and moods. Deep in the forest, getting lost in birdsong. Deep in the forest, getting lost in birdsong. Swifts darting about the cat's eyes. Swifts darting about the cat's eyes. Village life at a snail's pace. Village life at a snail's pace. Olive harvest. A farmer rests in the shade of his straw hat. Olive harvest. A farmer rests in the shade of his straw hat. Carnival. So many masks we wear. Carnival. So many masks we wear.
I'm just going to come back in here and I've got questions to ask of Claire, but before we go on, it didn't occur to me actually at the beginning to say anything about the Mount of Tariq, and probably because, I've been around that area, and I obviously know that you were crossing the border into Gibraltar, but it doesn't say. I was just checking while you were reading it. I don't think it says that you were heading off to Gibraltar, but that is a really fun thing to do if you're
Well,
down that
yeah,
way.
it is. Gibraltar is a very peculiar place. So Mount of Tariq through just a basic Google search, because I wanted to combine sort of North Africa, Europe, and then the Rock of Gibraltar, the Rock of Gibraltar. So this is the English translation from the Arabic of the original name of the rock,
Uh-huh.
which then we've anglicized to Gibraltar, which actually I think is an Arabic word. There are many words in Spanish actually which come straight from Arabic, particularly words that have the AL. And so Mount of Tariq, I thought that's instantly we're starting, the Straits of Gibraltar where you can see over to Morocco, the outline of the Atlas Mountains, but you're in this British owned peculiar part of the world, and then the border straight into Europe. It
Mhm.
fascinates me. I've actually only been twice. The the haibun here was last year when we went with my parents. They were visiting, and we thought, let's have a day out. We'd been before years and years ago.
Mhm.
In fact, we the first time we went is because my dad is an architect, worked for a time as a civil servant, and he actually designed military residence in Gibraltar. But from living in the UK, he'd never been to see the physical buildings. So
Oh,
that was
okay.
why we went that time, about 20 years ago. Anyway,
Hmm.
we went back for a day out, and it's just so peculiar. It's strange. It's like a TV set. There's
Hmm.
Spanish, there's English being spoken, but you're under the Spanish sunshine. You can see Africa. I
Hmm.
always think it must be funny for the birds going overhead because, I mean, there's really important migratory routes here for many, many birds going down through Europe to North Africa for the winter and then coming back. And you just sort of imagine them looking, going, all these peculiar man-made borders, and they're just flying back and forth.
Hmm.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
I thought by choosing that time, I didn't know. I mean, I sort of did a Google search. I thought, what does Gibraltar mean? That can't, that must
Hmm.
come. And obviously, yeah, it comes from the Moors, who, of
Yes,
course, lived in Spain.
absolutely. And it's that's a really fascinating part of visiting Spain, seeing
Mm,
the Moorish influence in so
yeah,
many places,
yeah.
particularly down in Andalusia. Um, yeah, Gibraltar is a peculiar place. It's got all the things you would expect of a British high street, I guess.
Yeah.
And now I'm a bit of a post box nerd,
Okay.
Claire. It's got the full, I don't know if it's got a Charles yet, but it has got the full collection of post boxes. Not
Ah,
all of them
okay.
originals,
Okay.
but if you're short of a post box, I think it's the Edward the Seventh, maybe that is problematic to find. If you can't find one, you'll find it in Gibraltar because it's got everything. Just as an aside. Now, back to the book
Mm,
because it's really fascinating for me to talk to another editor on this and talk about the way you form your poetry because obviously you read a lot of poetry that other people send to you, and we all have our opinions when people send us their poems, and you wonder, oh, I wonder why they've put it this way or that way. And I had a question about two of your poems, which you're going to read. So I think you'll probably answer them in the reading of them. But do you think you could read the next two poems and then I can come back and ask you the questions?
sure. Okay. Morning meditation. On the beach, a flock of seagulls. Morning meditation. On the beach, a flock of seagulls. Monk parakeets, building their nest in a palm tree. A young couple argue on the bench below. Monk parakeets, building their nest in a palm tree. A young couple argue on the bench below?
You've certainly answered my question on the second one, but I'll ask you about that in a minute.
Mm.
Um, the first one, though, morning meditation on the beach, a flock of seagulls. Now you've gone against tradition on that one, and you've done long, short, long. And I wondered why you made that decision, or was it a conscious decision, or did you just tell me about it? Why this long, short, long?
Yeah, no, this I'm glad you asked because I think it is always interesting to reflect on our own writing. And like you say, because I judge other people's writing, and then you think, well, I should, exercise that same judgment on myself. Um, I think it's one I did write a couple of years ago, so it's nice to revisit it and think about it. I suppose what I like in haiku is a surprise or a twist, or maybe meeting things I wasn't expecting from line to line. And so opening with morning meditation, I mean, that could be anywhere. You could be at home, you could be anywhere.
Hmm.
And then on the beach, okay, so we're meditating on the beach, the reader's sort of getting into the scene and then finding the flock of seagulls. Here, I mean, I write a lot when I'm walking. I'll see
Mm.
things and then I'll note things down. So in the morning, there are often seagulls and they do meet together on the beach. They face, um, towards where the sun's risen.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess they're just sitting, sort of warming up, getting ready for the day. And I just thought, I'm meditating as I walk. I'm taking the scene. Are they meditating too? I like to imagine that they met as a sort of meditating group. You see people doing yoga on the beach or whatever. I just sort of thought, I'm meditating on the scene, but then, perhaps they're just sort of together. And yeah, but then when you ask that question, and I think, could it be turned round? Would that change, how we find that haiku?
Mm.
And yes, so talking about, long, short, long, now this is much debated in the haiku world, the
Of
counting of
course.
syllables, the length of lines. I don't count syllables now. I mean, I obviously, if you have a line, you think, gosh, that's far too long,
Mm.
then you're going to revise it. But I don't, as a rule, count the syllables. I go more with the words and how they're connected. And as I said, can I sort of make a twist or a
Mm.
surprise or even, like word play, double meaning of the word. So from line to line, the word can alter its meaning and change the
Mm.
aspect of the poem. So yeah, that you're right that I suppose here it wouldn't be considered sort of traditionally following the rules, but it's how I found the
Hmm.
scene, I suppose.
Hmm. No, it's just interesting to know. I mean, I'm not one. I mean, I have written long, short, long, but if I've got a poem like that, I often play around with it to see if I can get it back into what is a more traditional shape. But
Mm,
that might be one of my foibles, really. So yeah. But also, I was interested in the way you read it to hear the flow of it,
mm,
because often I think when you read something aloud, you will hear whether it works
mm,
far better than just looking at it on the page or reading it in your head. If you actually have to physically read it aloud, if you often I read something and I'll stumble over a word and then I'll go back and I'll think and I'll read it again. If I'm still stumbling, then I
mm,
think, okay, that's not right. I've got to change it. But the way you read that, there were no stumbles, no nothing. It was just it flowed nicely. So
mm.
that answered my question on that one. And the second one, monk parakeets. Now, I wondered with this one why you put argue on the final line as opposed to a young couple argue on the bench below. But when you read it,
Mm.
it was clear that that the cut came after couple. So that answered my question. Just when it's no problem at all with that one. Um,
Yeah, and I think I'm sort of trying to get a contrast here because obviously thinking, the parakeets together building a nest, that's a lovely scene, sort of
mhm,
family, all the palm tree, the lovely image that create, all the young couple, it's all very sort of lovely romantic scene. And then hang on, they're arguing,
mhm,
like they're, and also perhaps the idea that the arguing couple on the bench completely oblivious to the birds above, that disconnect between, people and nature. because they're so caught up in their own argument.
Oh, isn't that interesting? You cannot, as I discovered to my own cost recently, you cannot affect the way people read your poem. And I read that somewhat differently
Oh, okay.
because, and possibly that's why I wondered about the argue,
Mm,
that parakeets, certainly round my neck of the woods in Spain, so
yes,
noisy. And also in London, they're incredibly noisy in London as well. So for me, the noise was what I
yes,
was hearing in the
yes,
the poem,
yes,
and so it made complete sense that the
yeah,
couple were arguing. Yes, it's a surprise if you like, but it made when I you heard or I saw the word argue, I thought, yeah, that's bang on. But why put it on that line? But
yeah.
I could so understand now with well with the way you'd read it anyway, but with your explanation that was interesting too. So
Yeah,
it's
that's true. They're incredibly noisy birds. They do actually themselves seem like they're always arguing and fighting, and it's just how they communicate incredibly loudly. But I think, yeah, I definitely wanted to convey that as well. So yeah, I'm glad that you picked up on that. I guess, yeah, again, you could sort of reflect, the parakeets, the couple, the
mhm.
people, the couple. There's a lot of noise, there's a lot happening. It's a
Oh
busy,
yeah,
busy scene. Yeah.
absolutely. Um, so moving on again, because you edit, I really wanted to put the next question to you. Before I began the reading, obviously I read Robert Kingston's review and he spoke of the three forms of poetry. Alan Summers also, you've got some big reviewers on in the book. Alan Summers says the same thing, that they are haiku, tanka, and haibun. But I'm not sure I totally agree with the two chaps because I think you've bunged a few senryu, at least one in there.
Hmm.
So Claire, tell me, are you, as an editor, someone who differentiates haiku from senryu, or are you happy to bundle it all together?
No, I do. There's definitely a distinction. I mean, obviously in the form and structure, they're the
Mm,
same, but yeah, Senru, and they're very fun to write because they're looking at the human experience rather
hmm
than nature, and also can be funny, ironic, cynical. They are great fun.
mm,
And yeah, you're right. There's definitely that. I would say that I've included some. And going back to the Wee Sparrow Haiku Nook, I mean, there we are asking. Well, we ask for seasonal
yeah.
in terms of asking poets to write in the month, in which they find themselves. But I would say that Mark and I, when we sort of look at the selection, we definitely distinguish between Senru and Haiku.
hmm
And I mean, we would accept Senru because it can be, a human sort of experience within
hmm
that month. I mean, I think we had someone writing about perimenopause, and I thought that, that if we think of those sorts of seasons, or somebody sort of talking about, hair thinning, as leaves thin. So yeah, I you're right. Sometimes they can be sort of joined together, but I think they are two distinct forms, and often really quite enjoyable. I mean, you read a good Senru, they are often quite enjoyable to read.
Oh yeah. I'm doing a lot about that at the moment on the podcast. Not always enjoyable, but anyway, mo most people think of them as sort of funny little pieces, but they're not necessarily. I mean, the one you read out, Carnival, so many
Mm,
masks we wear. I mean,
yeah,
yes, it's got the season in it because, carnival
yeah,
season, I guess.
yeah,
But at the same time, to me, it spoke of humanity
yes,
rather than
yes.
the season, if you know what I
Yeah,
mean.
no, you're right. And yeah, I mean, obviously, looking at, the human experience and the darkness of that,
Mm,
yeah, I think
yeah,
Senru definitely, rather than haiku, is the form that we would choose. And yeah, the carnival, I mean, it's what I did think of because this idea of being disguised in the many different ways,
yeah,
that we can wear masks. Yeah, for sure.
absolutely. Absolutely. Claire, I've very much enjoyed the reading. Thank you very much. One thing we haven't covered is how folks can purchase your book. I mean, we've spoken a little bit about the posting difficulties, given that you've published in the States. But tell us, because it is actually easier than we perhaps gave people the impression. Tell us, how do people get hold of the book?
So it's, yes, it's published by Middle Creek Publishing and Audio. So it's up on their website. I mean,
Mm.
they have, my editor David has put it up on Amazon, which is global. I think it's in most countries. The reason being that for presses, it's expensive to print and distribute books. It's often difficult because of logistics of where we can send books to. I've even had experience of post literally just getting lost and never
Yeah.
arriving. So it's on Amazon globally, basically a simple Amazon search,
Yeah.
Wildflowers and Oyster Stone. You can find it. I mean, if people are in the US, it can be ordered directly from Middle Creek Publishing. Uh, I'm happy to send copies as well. I think the easiest way to contact me would be through the press. So our
Yeah.
website, weesparrowpoetrypress.com, has the press's email. That's probably the best email address to use. And I'm happy to post. I've posted all over the world. I mean, I've sent to New Zealand, Nepal, Canada, South America. I'm very well known in my local post office as the lady sending books again.
Mm.
But there's something actually really enjoyable about, packaging up a book and sending it off into the world. So yes, we use Amazon because it's, economical and it's the easiest way, but I'm happy to send out copies as well.
Okay. I'll put the various links in the show notes so people can click on that and get to you that way. So don't worry about that. If you're wondering, oh, I haven't got my notebook out, how do I go about it? Don't worry, just go to the website and you can go from there. So, Claire, you said that Wee Sparrow Press are putting together or just about to launch the next anthology.
Mhm.
Who are you supporting? What charity are you supporting for that one?
So we're going to be, because earlier this year I put out a call for guest editors, and I got various submissions of themes. I chose Marcel and Bronwyn's themes. So they've actually been working together and they've each chosen a charity. So we're going to be donating, they're both UK based. So Starlight, which supports sort of the overlooked, the pigeons, the rodents, these, kind of animals that
Oh,
perhaps, yeah. And Marcel, who's based in Wales, we're going to be donating to a tree project that they have that's under the umbrella of Keep Wales Tidy. So they're
okay.
quite local organizations, and the royalties will be split 50-50 between those two organizations.
Oh, that's
It's a
brilliant.
gorgeous collection. It's the themes. We were sort of looking at urban beauty, again, the overlooked animals, the pigeons, the
Yeah.
rats, the slugs. But in the end, it's quite a wonderful variety of poetry. And my dad's illustrations are
Good.
inside. Bronwyn's done the front cover artwork. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's gorgeous.
Brilliant. So hopefully somebody will come on and talk to us about that
Mm.
when it's out. And what about you personally? 3 years you worked on this book, Wildflowers in Oyster Stone. What are you doing now? Anything personal?
I mean, I'm always writing. I have various notebooks, some for long poems. I have a notebook specifically for sort of haiku, senru, tanka, haibun.
Mhm.
And I'm always adding to that. And then I submit, I've got sort of a few places that I like submitting to. Um, I submit longer poems as well. I haven't got plans for a collection, but
Mhm.
I have a vague idea of translating Wildflowers into Spanish
Ooh.
to sort of share it with friends here, because it's tricky when I mean, I speak fluent Spanish. That was my degree.
Mhm.
So I would be able to do it, and then it would be nice to share here and also to have sort of more in-person events. But at the moment, friends
Yeah.
here who don't speak English sort of, oh, congratulations on your book, but we can't really read it and
Nice.
enjoy it because it's written in English. So that's something that I've kind of got at the back of my mind
Oh, nice.
to work
Okay.
on, which I think would be interesting. And perhaps I'm setting myself up for quite a difficult task, because translation in itself
Oh,
is tricky. But I'm thinking, really, am I going to translate haiku? Because that's going to take perhaps some rejigging in some of the poems. But I think it could be fun.
I mean, you're translating your own work, so at least you know the message, the
Mm,
feel, the sort of nuance
yeah.
that you want to get across. So that's, I think, probably easier than translating somebody else's. I've read some really terrible translations
Mm,
of other people's work. So that should be good. It would be interesting to see how you form the poem, given that you're working with another language.
yeah.
And I just think of the stuff that I've tried to do in German, and it's just very difficult.
Mm,
Um, Particularly because the Germans like to do all their compound words, and they could go on forever. Um, so that's a little tricky, I have to say. Do you ever write them in Spanish?
I don't really. That's the
Oh.
problem. But I think that's kind of why I would like to try that because as a sort of new challenge and a new practice. Although I speak Spanish every day, it's my second language that I
Mm,
use functionally. When I think of poetry, they come into my head in English.
yeah. Well,
Um,
I'm not surprised by that. I
mm,
mean, it is your primary language, even
yeah,
even if you are using another one
yeah.
all the time. Um, well, I wish you well with that. That would be very
Thank you.
interesting. And I thank you so much for coming along and reading to us today, telling us where we can get hold of the book. Don't forget, you will find all the details in the show notes. And I look forward to hearing about the anthology when it's finally released, and perhaps hearing that you've sat down and you've finished translating the work into Spanish.
Yeah. And also, I think a form which I do enjoy is haibun. So in this book, there are a few, there's a scattering, but it is a form I really, really enjoy and something that I would like to sort of further develop. Um,
I think you should. I've already said to you, I've really, really enjoyed the haibun in this book. I
Thank you.
think it's if you were doing another one, I would say to you, try and do more,
Mm,
because
yeah.
it really gives you've got a really good skill set of putting
Thank you.
of the prose and the poetry together. It's excellent. Don't know how you got on with the titles, as we've discussed, but they seem pretty good to me. But there you go. So thank you very much, Claire. It's been a real
Thank you,
pleasure.
Patricia.
Thanks.